So again, a rookie is back there for him, Cole Bishop, number 24. Here's a first down throw down the field and open down to the 1 yard line. It's Bateman. Again, Lamar loves to go to his tight ends down here. Floating, looking, flickering, and ball tapped around, and it falls incomplete.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next, a fireable offense for John Harbaugh. Let's talk. Now, you guys know I've been going hard at John Harbaugh since the time we began doing videos here at the GM. And I've gone hard at him, and I've gone hard at EDC because of the lack of success. Yes, we've had regular season success. We've broken records offensively. We've had a #1 level defense a couple of seasons, and all those things are good, but we have not been close to the Super Bowl. And sometimes it's just time for something different. And I know this was even more true for the Baltimore Ravens after the AFC Championship loss last year, where a lot of us was pounding the table, so to speak, to move on from John Harbaugh. But of course, nothing happened. We had a whole hum off season, added Derrick Henry, started this season, and got up to a bad start. Some of that was play calling, some of that was decision making. And then we had an undisciplined year and got it together after the bye week. And it looked like John Harbaugh had figured things out again as a head coach, and things began to settle in. In fact, different from my common statements about John Harbaugh, I actually gave him some praise for kind of staying out of the way, not messing it up. And that's kind of a bad way to think about and or talk about your head coach, but it was true, right? And so we get into the playoffs, dominate the Steelers, and then we have this loss this past Sunday. And all kind of things happened in this game, all kind. We had a turnover interception by Lamar Jackson. We had a fumble by Lamar Jackson. We had a fumble by Mark Andrews. We had a drop ball by Mark Andrews. And all of those things were highlighted ever since the broadcast of the game, post-game, Monday, Tuesday, and even today. And I knew that the Ravens would not move on from John Harbaugh simply because when it's this late in the offseason, now, when I say it that way, the offseason began basically week 18, right? Because some teams have been able to fire coaches and hire new coaches and things like that. And so when we play 2 additional weeks, it's kind of too late to kind of get into the head coaching search. And so I did not think that the Ravens would move on from John Harbaugh. And typically when you have a 12-win season and you go into the playoffs and you have some success, that head coach typically does not get fired. And John Harbaugh has been consistently marketed as a top 5 coach of all time, and he's a top, coach in the league. And I never really saw where that made a lot of sense. There wasn't a correlation for me because I have said consistently I thought that Harbaugh had been riding on the back of Lamar Jackson and his talents, saving his job season after season after season, starting in 2018, where the Baltimore Ravens had not made the playoffs the 3 previous years. John Harbaugh should have been gone at the end of the 2017 season. He was surely headed for a new job somewhere else in 2018 when the Ravens were not headed to the playoffs until Lamar Jackson became the starter and they made the playoffs. And of course, Harbaugh has been at the head of the Ravens ever since. But he said something today in his press conference, out of all of the other run-of-the-mill stuff that he and EDC said, he said something today that I believe is one of the most egregious statements a head coach could make. And it highlights his decision-making. It highlights why we've lost consistently in big games. It highlights why, we seem to be undisciplined, because when you have a certain type of thinking.
Are you crazy? Or just plain stupid?
Stupid is acting without common sense. And here's what he said today, just in case you guys missed it, amongst all of the other stuff.
Go back to the Bills game. One of the key sequences was you guys had 1st and goal at 2 and got held to a field goal. And a lot of people are critical of the fact that Derrick Henry had one touch in that sequence. What do you say about that sequence? And do you think of that once the season is over? Do you kind of put that game off more than a week to week?
No, we look at it very closely, and when you're not successful, the play calling is going to be in question. And we question it too. We look at it really hard, and we ran it the first time, and they ran it all out, pretty much an all out blitz, and stopped it. You can definitely run 3 times into an all out blitz if you want, but that's probably not very smart. We had a play. The second play was an idea to get kind of sneak Ronnie out, and you got to give the you can say, well, it's a bad call, but if it works and he's wide open, it's a great call. And it's a little bit of a trick play probably. So we tried that.
Wait, what? Let's listen again.
To get kind of sneak Ronnie out, and you got to give the you can say, well, it's a bad call, but if it works and he's wide open, it's a great call. It's a little bit of a trick play, probably.
Do you guys understand what he said? Do you guys understand what he said? Did you guys hear him say that when Lamar Jackson in this series of plays had put the Ravens at the 1 yard line, which was probably like the 1.5 yard line, we know that Derrick Henry got stopped on the first play. And what he says is, we called a play. And you have to say we, whether John leaned over into the mic and said, hey, Monken, do you have your best trick play ready? Or whether it was Monken who sent the play down and John said, oh yeah, that's a good play. But what he communicates to the public is that in a game that was cold and frigid, snow on the ground, you call a play where your left tackle is supposed to go out for a pass. That's what you call? That's what you thought at that point in the game? After 2 turnovers, now you have an opportunity to score and close and tie the game. You thought at that moment that was the best play you had. You thought that, you know what? That's a preseason call. That's a regular season game call where you're trying to get off a play and see if it works so you can put it in your pocket for later. That's not a divisional round playoff game when you are down 7 points and there's snow on the ground. Your offensive lineman has no choice but to put his hand down into that snow because that's the rules. You call a play where he was going to go out on a pass route. Now, unless there's another Ronnie on this team, he was talking about Ronnie Stanley. You thought as a head coach and as an offensive coordinator that was a good play to call at that time. Think about it. You have a 305-pound fullback. You have a 250-pound running back. You have the best running quarterback in the league who has elite speed. He's going to be faster than anybody chasing him, even in the snow. And you thought that it was okay to call a pass play for your left tackle. And then you have the audacity to say in this interview, well, when you call a play and it don't work, it's a bad call. But if it works, it's a good call. Are you kidding me? Is John Harbaugh playing with these players? Is John Harbaugh playing with these players' careers? That's what he's doing. When these guys have fought and sweated and bled and suffered injury all season long, and they're in their 19th game, and you thought it's a good idea in the biggest game of the season, when you're literally at the 1.5, 2 yard line, that you should call a play where your left tackle goes out for a pass. See, I've been telling you guys, it's a leadership and decision-making issue in Baltimore. You see, and if he was willing to say the quiet things out loud in this interview in front of the whole world to hear him, when we see dumb stuff in games, we no longer have to figure out why. We no longer have to figure out why dumb stuff happens in games. We no longer have to figure out why he can't manage a clock. We no longer have to figure out why we don't run the ball in the AFC Championship, why we didn't run the ball more in 2020, and why we didn't run the ball while we're on the goal line with Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson. Silly. That's the reason why on the 2-point conversion, Todd Monken is willing to call a play where Derrick Henry is motioned out of the backfield. So it's very, very simple to defend that because you know right off there is no threat of run unless Lamar Jackson is going to take off. But when you see him drop back, it's easy to defend. This is what we've been dealing with the head coach. He just finally had the opportunity to open his mouth and say it out loud. This is the thought process. How many more dumb plays were called in this game or in the AFC Championship or in the 2020 playoffs? See, I got some commentary back on who was the blame, and most people, some people point to Lamar Jackson, some people point to the whole team, and it's definitely a whole team thing. And I know, I heard some commentary from some Baltimore Ravens content creators say, this may not have been as much on John Harbaugh this time. That's not true. Because if this is the thought process you have in a crucial moment in the game, right? If this is the thought process you have, you can't make it up. If this is the thought you have that it's a good idea in the freaking snow, who is Ronnie Stanley going to outrun? Who is he going to shake? Who is he going to juke? Who is he going to trick when he has to come out of a 3-point stance and get over into the flat and then secure the ball? Come on, man. Listen, it's our fault, though. Ravens Nation, fan base, it's our fault. Because we've put up with this foolishness. Most of you guys who stand on the side of the team and point at Lamar as the problem, and the other people who talk about EDC has done a great job and John Harbaugh, he doesn't play, he only coaches. If this doesn't speak louder to you, then I have to begin to question our fan base's football acumen. Because if anybody thinks that was a good idea, we're wrong. Now we can have an understanding into why some of the play calling makes no sense. Because this is literally how these dudes are thinking. Headed by John Harbaugh. EDC should have looked over and said, John, wait.
Are you crazy? Or just plain stupid?
Stupid is, stupid does, Mrs. Blue.
He should have looked over and said, John, did you say you called a trick play for Ronnie Stanley to go out for a pass in the snow? You're fired. Lamar Jackson should have jumped out of the back room and said, John, I'm firing you. Steve Bisciotti should have came through and said, John, you got to go. See, that speaks to what he's been doing at the helm this whole time. He is literally playing with these guys' careers. If what I'm understanding that the pass was for Ronnie Stanley, let me just say that again. If that's true, he's playing with these guys' career. Because playoff opportunities don't always come around. It's unbelievable that he would say that publicly, that we called a trick play. Now you understand why they didn't run the ball as much. Now you understand why the 2-point conversion was set up the way that it was, the one that Lamar Jackson threw when it was tipped. This is the play calling and the decision making that we've been dealing with. This is what Lamar Jackson has to strap on his back and carry year to year as well. See, it's always easy to say players play and coaches coach. But if this is the coaching, I'll pass. It's a fireable offense. Is he stupid or something? How could he have thought that that was a good idea? In a moment where you had 2 turnovers and now you have an opportunity to tie the game up, you thought that was a good idea? You couldn't use your big fullback. You couldn't use your 250-pound running back. You couldn't use your all-world quarterback. You couldn't. I would have settled for the Mark Andrews direct snap play. Where is the Baltimore Ravens tush push in those moments when you're that close to the goal line? Everybody else does it. But no, we're smarter than everybody else. We call left tackle pass. That's unbelievable, guys. That's a fireable offense. I'm done. I'm done with 2024, 2025. Everything I talk about from this point, now I'll make points of reference, but everything I talk about at this point going forward is February 8th, 2026. That's my focus. February 8th, 2026 is the Super Bowl date. And if we're not there and we're not competing for a championship, then we must detonate everything for the Baltimore Ravens and start from scratch, from top to bottom. I'm Miguel Boulanger. This is the GM. And is he stupid or something? I'm out.